You're listening to an African Elements top news story for June 20th, 2025. Please visit our website at africanelements.org for more daily news. Kentucky Trooper James Wright, Excessive Force Allegations, by Darius Spearman. Kentucky State Trooper James Cameron Wright is facing a new lawsuit. This legal action alleges excessive force during a traffic stop in June 2024. During this incident, Wright reportedly tased and pepper sprayed an unarmed man, Dawson Blevins, who was a passenger. This lawsuit adds to a growing list of serious accusations against the trooper, highlighting a pattern of alleged misconduct that has drawn federal attention. The lawsuit claims Wright pulled over a car driven by Arturo Cordova, with Blevins as a passenger. The initial reason for the stop was a seatbelt violation. A seatbelt violation is a common traffic infraction where a driver or passenger is not wearing a seatbelt as required by law. This is a primary offense in many places, meaning officers can stop a vehicle solely for this reason. Wright then accused Cordova of having a marijuana roach, which refers to the butt or remnant of a smoked marijuana cigarette. It typically contains residual cannabis. After placing Cordova in his patrol car, Wright ordered Blevins out of the vehicle. Blevins began complying with Wright's order to exit the vehicle. However, he reached for his phone to record the incident. At this point, Wright told him he was under arrest and threw him to the ground. The lawsuit alleges that Wright repeatedly tased Blevins even after he was on the ground and complying with commands. He then used pepper spray on him. A taser, also known as a conducted energy weapon, is a less lethal device designed to incapacitate individuals by delivering an electric shock that temporarily disrupts muscle control. Pepper spray, or oleoresin capsicum spray, is a non-lethal aerosol irritant derived from chili peppers. It causes temporary incapacitation by irritating the eyes, respiratory system, and skin. Both tools are meant to be alternatives to more lethal force. However, their use carries potential risks, including injury from falls, respiratory distress, and in rare cases, more serious health complications. As a result of this encounter, Blevins suffered 2 compression fractures to his thoracic spine. A compression fracture to the thoracic spine refers to a break in one or more of the vertebrae in the middle part of the back. This type of fracture typically occurs when the bone is compressed or crushed, often due to significant force or trauma. The severity can range from mild to severe, potentially causing significant pain and limited mobility. Blevins was initially charged with obstructing governmental operations, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, possession of drug paraphernalia, and possession of a controlled substance. Obstructing governmental operations is a charge brought when an individual intentionally hinders a public servant from performing an official function. Resisting arrest occurs when an individual knowingly uses force to prevent a law enforcement officer from making a lawful arrest. All charges against Blevins were dismissed earlier this month. James Cameron Wright, along with 2 other current or former Kentucky State Police troopers, was indicted by a federal grand jury in March 2025. The charges include federal civil rights violations, including excessive force and perjury. Federal civil rights violations, particularly in the context of police misconduct, typically involve actions by law enforcement officers that deprive individuals of their rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the Constitution or laws of the United States. These violations are often prosecuted under Title 18, United States Code, Section 242, which specifically addresses the deprivation of rights under color of law. Former Kentucky State Police Trooper Thomas Zartorsky, 34, was charged with 2 counts of using unreasonable force. Kentucky State Police Trooper Jared Lewis, 29, was charged with 1 count of using unreasonable force. James Cameron Wright, 30, was charged with 2 counts of using unreasonable force and 1 count of perjury related to false declarations made under oath in a federal civil case. Perjury is the intentional act of swearing a false oath or making a false statement when under oath, especially in a court of law. It is a serious felony offense because it undermines the integrity of the justice system. Legally, excessive force by law enforcement officers refers to the use of force that is objectively unreasonable in light of the facts and circumstances confronting them. This determination is made from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene, rather than with the 20/20 vision of hindsight. Factors considered include the severity of the crime, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat, and whether they are actively resisting arrest. The indictment states that on March 5, 2020, Wright, Lewis, and Zartorsky allegedly used excessive force, including stomping and kicking a victim, with some blows to the victim's head. The Fourth Amendment protects people from unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. It requires that warrants be based on probable cause. The 14th Amendment includes the Due Process Clause, which prohibits states from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It also includes the Equal Protection Clause, which requires states to provide equal protection under the law to all people within their jurisdiction. In the context of police conduct, the Fourth Amendment governs arrests and the use of force, ensuring that force used is reasonable. The 14th Amendment extends these protections to state and local government actions, preventing arbitrary or abusive police practices. Wright is also accused of tasering another suspect on March 12, 2024, without legal justification. If convicted, James Cameron Wright faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison. The new lawsuit against Wright and other Kentucky state troopers alleges a pattern and practice of excessive force and cover-ups by KSP supervision. Pattern and practice in legal terms refers to a repeated, routine, or regular course of conduct. It suggests that the alleged misconduct is not an isolated incident, but rather a systemic issue. The lawsuit names Kentucky state troopers Jeremy Smith, Morris W. Ferris, Brad Riley, Matthew J. Johnson, Michael Rogers, Chad White, and Philip Burnett Jr. as defendants. It accuses them of violating Blevins' Fourth and 14th Amendment rights by protecting and covering up Wright over the years. The lawsuit claims that this is not the first time Wright has engaged in flagrant violations of citizens' rights to be free from excessive force. It states it is at least the fourth known incident. The lawsuit details previous incidents of alleged abuse by Wright. On March 5, 2020, he allegedly beat a non-resisting man named Justin Holcomb. On April 2, 2020, he allegedly abused a non-resisting man named Thomas Davis during a traffic stop. This incident was reportedly covered up by Wright's superiors. Then, on April 9, 2020, he allegedly beat a non-resisting man named Alex Hornback. A phone recording the incident was snatched and footage deleted. On March 12, 2024, he allegedly abused a non-resisting man named John Millett III by throwing him to the ground and repeatedly tasering him. Millett has also filed a lawsuit against Wright. The lawsuit suggests that this pattern of abuse was allowed to continue because Wright's superior officers permitted it. He was even named Trooper of the Year, despite knowledge of his alleged misconduct and perjury. This award, typically given for outstanding service, stands in stark contrast to the serious allegations against him. All three indicted troopers were scheduled to make initial appearances before a U.S. magistrate judge in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Kentucky on April 3, 2025. James Cameron Wright has been suspended from the force. He is scheduled for trial in September over the federal charges. The dismissal of all charges against Dawson Blevins, who suffered significant injury, underscores the serious nature of the allegations against Trooper Wright. It also raises questions about the initial justification for Blevins' arrest. The ongoing legal proceedings will determine the full extent of accountability for these alleged actions. The allegations against Trooper Wright and the Kentucky State Police raise significant concerns for the community. The repeated nature of the alleged excessive force incidents coupled with claims of cover-ups can erode public trust in law enforcement. For African American and other marginalized communities, such incidents are particularly troubling. They often highlight historical patterns of disproportionate targeting and abuse. The pursuit of justice in these cases is not merely about individual accountability. It is also about addressing systemic issues within police departments that allow such patterns to persist. The federal indictment and the new civil lawsuit signal a critical moment for accountability within the Kentucky State Police. The outcome of Wright's trial and the civil cases will have far-reaching implications. It will impact victims seeking redress and the broader community's faith in the justice system. The focus remains on ensuring that law enforcement officers are held to the highest standards of conduct. This includes respecting the constitutional rights of all citizens, regardless of their background or the circumstances of an encounter. Copyright African Elements.